This day 579. The Arukh HaShulchan Yummy. Like to sponsor upcoming share Arukh HaShulchan Yummy or more, please contact me directly. It'd be very greatly appreciated. Today we are doing Siman Shin Mem Sif Yud to Yud Ches. Sif Yud. Tviyah, spinning. Wab Malacha, Vayab Mishkan. And was a Mishkan to receive Tovo Seizim. They spun the goats. But not paid Sayam Mishkan, carding the wool. Sharia Pisha by Tamashutum Lars and Mishkan. Bekreshni Tum, they had to make them with the fibers, separate the fibers. Maybe carding is not the right translation, but in any event, separating the fibers, making strands out of them. They had to do this in order to make the strands for the threads. Shearing was in the Mishkan. They sheared the sheep for the purpose of the Mishkan. The gathering was also the Mishkan, because we also saw money when they planted the spices and herbs they needed. When they grew up, when they harvested them, they gathered them to one spot. Shir of Tanan, the Shir of Tviyah, is Kimlo Rocha B'Sita Kofel. Is the Rocha B'Sita Kofel, like we mentioned before. Ramud Dal Tvachim, Kohen Ramud's 4 Tvachim, they'll show in Perik Tesdim Tesvav. Somebody who spins a thread which is the length of 4 Tvachim, or anything which can be spun, Chayev. Whether it is wool, linen, notza, which is I guess from feathers of birds, or sayar, which I think is cashmere, the hair of goats, or sagidin, or sinews, which with which they sew, as we know, the tefillin, Sefer Torah and stuff. Chelka yitzben, anything similar to that. Vosis levad, somebody who makes a piece of felt where there's no threads, just pressed wool and linen. It's also derivative of Taibin libel. As long as the felt you're creating is something which could have mounted to a thread which is 420 long, but be Benoni in a thread of average diameter. For Ravid Sigala, Ravid argues with the Rambam. I don't see how you get how spinning manifests in making felt. What you do in order to make felt is you take a bleached and carded wool, and put it on top of a garment, and you put piece on piece in order to make a full, fully make it thick. And then you tamp it with water, and you wrap it in that garment, and tightly, until it will those clumped up fibers inside will become connected to each other and harden, and that makes the felt. This connection equals spinning. I don't know. I think it's more like making cheese. Which is a derivative of bona. Sure, any day I don't know what the shear should be. Maybe it should be the width and length of a small garment, like those braids, some sort of ribbons, which poor girls make on their foreheads. I should be shown because the Klagol before Rambam. I guess they never Yerushalmi handy that in the Klagol it's just like the Rambam. Hein David Chavalim, somebody who makes ropes. Hein David Mamzur, someone makes a Mamzur. Because of spinning. Mamzur near Shum Mizran. A Mamzur seems to be some sort of mattress. Now, if a mattress stands out of the bed, even the smallest amount, I guess maybe that's a tumah. Upirish Baruch Arukh Mizran Shu Beged Semer. Arukh says the Mizran is a woolen garment, Shnosnim HaChashum Mitoseim, which important people put on their beds, Tachas Kol Matzos, underneath all the spreads, Lashon Las Tapita, Lashon Yishma Mizer, Ayin Sham. Tarim Sham Bilshonenu, and there it translates in our language, it's coverets. Ishkoin cover. Vizel Levadim, and these are made of felt. Levadim and Tzemer because felt is mixed wool, B'li Tvia of Ariga, without any spinning or weaving. Because Rav Sokilaim, Shnenu pilts. It's a kind of the quilt, which is obviously a form of felt. Yud Beis, Ha Mesach, Have Amalocha. So what's Mesach? Ma Mesach, Shemoteh Chuti Ashti B'Kiseho Reg. It's when you take the warp threads and you tie them into the frame of the loom. Mikovid El Yod Kovid Tachton, from a higher weight to a lower weight. Zelshan Ram something Yudzayin. Haderach Orgim, when the manner of weaving is Shemotchem Achutim Tchila Borech Hayriya Rukova. That you first tighten the strings to the length of the fabric you're trying to make, and Rukova and its width. And two people hold one on this side, one on the other side. One pounds on the chutim on the threads. So they should be even next to each other. So I'm not sure what I said before. Orech Hayriya v'Rachva. I think it's just Orech Hayriya. But okay. In any event, it's all the shasi threads. It's the threads, the warp threads, and they're all parallel to each other. They're all in a line, very close to each other, obviously. I say Masiba Sichas Achutin Kederach Orgim, and the stringing up of these threads, as weavers do, on Sachas Hamaseches. That is, I don't know, stringing up the strings. When you stretch them out on the frame, Nikra Nikra Mesach. And when you start doubling up, in other words, you obviously the way weaving works is that half of the threads go up, half of the threads go down, and then you throw the weft shuttle in between. So that is I should say that this is horizontal to the ground. Okay? So evidently, since I guess is what the pshat is. Yeah. So the mesach is in the frame of the loom. You put a vertical strings, which are going to hold the horizontal strings. So that is the setting up those vertical strings, which are going to hold the horizontal strings, and those vertical strings don't become part of the garment. Those are what hold the horizontal strings in place and allow you to go up and down. So that is considered to be mesach when you make put those horizontal strings in place. And if you when you bang on threads until they are separated and you fix them as separate strands, it's close to mesach. It's a derivative of mesach. What's a shir mishtakin rochav shtei etzbos? Once you do 2 finger breadths worth of mesach at kalashona. But it's a mishkan levels and bishlan by tchelas yerios, and obviously you have to had this in the mishkan for the work of the linen and the tchelas for the curtains. Yugimel Yishami the cloud gadol. Hahen davar kantaran nafan umachzeles chay mishum mesach. Somebody who makes a sieve. Or a mat is chay because of mesach. V'nova martzeles yidua. What these things are, we know. V'kuntaran, who managed sakos umikanim, And a kutzon is like a sack, but made out of reeds. When you put the frame in place, which is going to then hold the basket weave, that's called mesech. Chaim mishum mesech. Hada itasa kamishta bekubya. This a woman who is who puts the when she puts the chassis, the whatever the the warp thread is considered to be in that case, that's considered to be meseches. And that's when she puts the thread into those into those into that frame. I'm a bit lost as to what's happening here. But in any event, the Avach Kupin Kat Safar, Mishum Mesech, what's that? Vizel Osa Kupos, somebody makes baskets, Mikan receive from reeds or fiber, Shemaschila Sos Gdil Saviva Kupa Bishulea. And when you start making the initial weave at the bottom of the basket, which I guess is going to hold everything else in place, that's called Chaim Mishum Mesech. Hey David, Milin Arsin L'orech Mishum Mesech. What's that? She'osa mitos mean 8 sakunikra milin. You make beds out of a type of wood which is called milin. And shemaskelu organ, when you start weaving them, l'orech ha'etz, to the length of the tree. Rach I'm sorry. When you start weaving them to the length, dates rach tachas, and somehow this wooden frame is soft and it gets taut. Have a pishton. It's like working, weaving with wool and linen, and it's also mesa. So again, there's some sort of bed. In the old days, we know they used to weave the frame of the bed, which held up the mattress in the middle. So I guess somehow these wooden poles somehow served as the basis, as the mesech, the maseches, what we said, where the framework for the weaving afterwards. You doubt also shnei batinirin. Some makes 2 batinirin. Harvey amalacha, that's also an amalacha. Zel gan came be'esarida, there's also a time when you weave. Shasa otiken shtei tabos shtei anivos. You made 2 rings or 2 loops. Shvem machlis b'chol tabas oniva chut echad. In which you put in each ring or each of the slip knots 1 string of the chassis. Right, the chassis is, you have the frame of the loom, and you have the seches, which is the arranged threads coming down from the top of the loom to the bottom of the loom. And then you put the chassis threads through the buttoneering, a little slip knot or a little hole in each one of those up and down threads. It's supposed I'm making the little loopholes. Or whether you put 2 threads through them. So he makes 2 batiniers liable. So he makes a sieve or one type of sieve, another type of sieve, a basket or another type of basket. Is like a hat, like a straw hat. By women. Or you wove your bed with this ropes. All these are derivatives of osanirin. When you make 2 loops in any of these, chayev. So to somebody who makes 2 loops in any of these things which are done with loops, chayev. And this is obviously in the weaving of the curtains and the weavings of the curtains. I'm not sure what he means by that. The Klein were patterns of the curtains. Meaning, when she puts the strings in the holes in front of her. That's already considered to be also batinirin. Hahein davad milin kankaltin mishum also batim. Okay, this is similar to what we learned before. It makes shows a million, shish million from that wood, which is called million. Shows the base arigoso chador time. I guess when you weave, you make like little rooms in it, little places in niches, which you're going to put in the straps or whatever you're using in order to weave it. If you make two nirin in one chaf, which is chaf is normally what are they called? The key, the bottom part of the bottom part of the key, which an old lock, like the end, which the part which turns in the lock. I'm blanking on the word. Okay, you learned something new. That is called a bit, I think, at the end, which bites into the lock, and different parts of it are called wards, clefts, or ward cuts. So, according to simple shot would be then that you make, I guess, two wards in one bit. Two wards in one bit, like there are two notches in this bit. Or two bits in one ward. I don't understand what it is, how that works. So let's see what Arukh HaShulchan says. So he learns to do with keys. Has to do with you have if you put two strings into one loop, or I'm sorry, yeah. Or you put somehow you put it one thread through two loops. Chayev. Okay, maybe that's the pshat. Tesvav ariga ve'amalacha. Weaving is an amalacha. The ariga mikre, ariga is called shemachnis hashesi ba'erev, but machnis hashesi ba'erev. I thought he put the Arab in the Shasi. Okay, that's it. When he put the weft threads through the warp threads. She choice in Mishkan. Obviously, it was in Mishkan Shargo, you realize Vakloim, where they wove the curtains and the I guess the dividers. The Shiro and the Shir Kasav Ramam Misham Dan Yinuches. Somebody who weaves two threads in length of breadth of two fingers, whether it's weaving from scratch, whether part of the garment was already woven, and you add it onto that which is woven, the measure is two threads. If you wove even one thread but it completed the garment, you're liable because it's makapatish. If you wove at the end of the piece of fabric two threads, across the length of three of those holes, which are in the loom, you're liable. It's like you wove a small belt, which is the width of three of the loops. Even though it doesn't have two finger breadths, the came to the beg god of Neatzmo says to be considered its own small garment. You're liable by the shear of two batinerin. I should say three, I think, because we just said brach of shosh batinerin. But that shear shkas Rambam orig brach of shtei bozu to mulichora. The shear the Rambam writes to its both seems to be difficult. The Mishnah Sheninu the orig shnei chutin, that we learned that the weaving two threads, shur kumloasit, the shear is mloasit. Came Rambam atzmo kasa betvi. Since Rambam himself wrote by spinning shur kumloachav asit kafel shur arba tvachim, that's 4 tvachim. Losh lebesim v'skein yud. Came kumloasit shnei hat tvachim. So that's case mloasit. It says mloasit, not mloasit kafel. Since it says mloasit, it should be 2 tvachim. Ve'ech mechai b'shnei etzbos. How it comes down to 2 finger breadths. Namdasaram Milokamar Kamoli Rochav Asit, El Kamol Asit. So it must be that the Ram holds that the share of seat is not half of 2 seat, but it's a different measurement. Who share achad the shnei etzbos? It's Magamisha says. Rashi doesn't say it, but he says it's specifically half of the shear of spinning. Tesai, total sorek, derivatives of weaving. Kasam Sham, hamadaktik is a chutin, somebody who pounds the threads, and freedom, and again, mandactic means you kind of make them thread-like. You take fibers, make them, and you separate them in order to make. I guess there are a lot of fibers together there, and you either pound it or do whatever else it takes to separate it, and then you at the time of your weaving, have it to raise it to let us oreg. It's a derivative of oreg. I guess they're using this. They're somehow spreading that thread while you weaving in some way, shape, or form. And somebody who braids fibers like a lanyard. I raise los oreg derivative of oreg. That's both when you make like 2 fingers breadth worth of lanyard. Rashi tzarch shnei tvachim because Rashi need 2 tvachim. Shami gam misha oseh davar me'etz shmo milin. Somebody makes something from the milin wood shurach, which is soft. Chai mishum oreg be'shemachnis harocha val orech. You're liable because of oreg when you put the width into the length. Ayin sham. Yudzai hapotzeh gan can have a melacha. Potzeh is an amelacha. Ma'u potzeh shemesir chutei erv ma'chutei shasi. When you remove the warp threads, the left threads from the warp threads, or vice versa, for the purpose of weaving. Rashi's outcast of Mishnah of his malacha is elishono. Potzea is menatic to sever. Sometimes there are 2 strings, 2 threads too much. Not the man and you have to sever them. I'm not sure whether you sever them just to shorten them. You're actually removing some strands because it says in maklishon. Means it sounds like moving strands. The tzorech is that's called potzea akal shonim. The Ram Periktes kosav ha-botzea, the base, shnei chutim, 2 strands, chayev, 2 threads is chayev. Botzea hu ha-mafrish is already, he separates the weave. Ben shehoti ora er min ha-shesi o shevi ha-shesi me'ev, one layer from the other. Ha-reza botzea chayev. Ushelo yeh makalka. That's botzea, but as long as you're not makalka, as long as you're not ruining the weave. El yiskam again, in some way it's fixing it. Kedel shosim el shem achnes is going to akalim biyoser. It's like people who mend those very light garments, very light fabrics. They have to kind of like separate. This is for what's called, used to be called invisible weaving. I don't think people do it very often nowadays, but you had a garment, like a pants, which got a rip in the middle, not by a seam, and you wanted to fix them. They would do invisible weaving, which is you would actually have to open up the threads in that place and separate them and then weave them back together again, which was not as obvious as just sewing it up. That's he said. Again, they separate threads and then they weave again until the 2 garments of the 2 ripped sides come one. Somebody who undoes a lanyard in order to fix it. It's also derivative of botzea. Shir kashir botzea akal shon, and the same shir as botzea. Pirsham botzea lashon chituch means to cut. Shechotech shnei chutim. So before it must have meant to remove strands from the threads, and here it means that the right says to cut them. Shachar shishli marigaso, after you finish weaving, chotech es aruk, you cut the weave. Mina mashur shemaseches, from that which is left in the framework. Even if you only cut 2 threads out, Chai b'chatichus you're chai for this cutting. Ankal shoro. Chol pirushin v'adei mishkan. Their fair interpretation is definitely was the Mishkan came to Shayach Melech Sariga, because it's relevant to the malacha of weaving, which they have to do in the Mishkan. Yud Ches Hakosim Amochik. More familiar ground here. Somebody writes or erases have a melvis mochus mother of mochus mochik enu chayv el mochik am nas lichto. Erasing is only chayiv if you did it in order to write. Have a mochik de kalka, but if you're erasing in order to ruin, potter, you're exempt. Have also, but it's forbidden. The shuro shnei osios. The measure is 2 letters. Kachshinu by Mishnah. Because if shnei osios belemechot, somebody writes 2 letters in one period of forgetfulness, chayiv is liable chatas. The Mishnah was the Mishnah. She Rosh Malkarsha Mishnah used to put signs on the markings on the boards of the Mishkan. Later, Eze Ben Zugah know which one went next to the other. Nation of Farkim also because he's taking the Mishkan apart. Shemidu, and when it's set up again, lo yachavu seder crushing. They would not change the order of the boards. Therefore, you couldn't also crushing. They would write letters on the beams, list Simon as a sign Ayin Sham. It's here back over. In the brackets, he says Tanakama Bakrachli Osios. According to Tanakama, they were actual letters, and according to Rabbi Yossi, there they were Hiroshimos. They were marks. So even on marks, not just on letters. Mishabur says you don't when mochik is chayv amnas lichov, you don't have to have in mind that you're going mochik in order to write on Shabbos. And so to by Susam Nivnos, the Korah Amnas Litfor, by destroying something in order to rebuild it and ripping something in order to sew it, you don't have to have in mind to do the positive, the constructive part of the malacha on Shabbos, even doing after to have in mind to do it after Shabbos. This preparation to do it is in and of itself chayav.